Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought today we would talk about the leak list and my general thoughts on the vehicles that are supposedly coming, and should the update be fun, should it not be fun, all of those general things. I also want to point out, in a data mine yesterday from Zabby, there was a new text which was put in. There was the new title and pack, which was the Black Friday stuff, but also a new text, which was application for participation in the CBT 2025. Seems like a very weird thing to add, unless we're looking at submarines, or unless we're looking at infantry, or maybe something else, who knows, but I'm sure we'll find out in a few weeks. As always, if you enjoy the content, make sure to subscribe, and also like the video. Let's get started. So this leak list seems really interesting in terms of ground for me. As a person who's much more interested nowadays in light tanks than MBTs, the fact that there's a bunch of different types of light tanks here makes me incredibly happy. You have the M10 Booker, the BMPTs, the Ajax, and also the Freccia Hitfist. All of these vehicles should be pretty fun, especially when it comes to the Ajax and the M10 Booker. The BMPT, obviously with its funny gun, which we'll talk about later, the fact that it has the bouncy guns, which I'm sure won't be replicated in-game, by the way, should be an interesting platform, but the major interest to me isn't actually the guns, it's the fact that it should have some new missiles if they decide to give it to them, and it's once again based off of a T90/T72 chassis, which means that mobility of it won't exactly be fantastic for a light tank. And that's one of the problems that I have with those types of vehicles, where they're more designed for kind of infantry support, suppressing fire, clearing out urban areas, but in War Thunder you don't really have that type of thing. You have tank-on-tank combat. You don't have areas where you support infantry against some kind of AI horde. And that's where something like a BMPT would actually be useful. When we have a look at the M10 Booker with its gun, it makes much more sense in terms of the game. The good old Ajax with its 40mm, I was a huge fan of the STRF 9040C, and still am a huge fan even after all of the nerfs that they've given it. And when I look at the Ajax, it just seems to be kind of like a bigger version of that, so I think it should be quite fun, as long as they don't go crazy when it comes to its BR. Sometimes they put these light tanks at BRs they just don't deserve. A lot of the big box vehicles like the CM34 or even the FE, I just don't understand their BRs at all. But these vehicles will probably be more around the 11.0 area / 10.0 area, so that would make more sense. And then another Freccia. The Freccia is really fun in the game. It's one of those vehicles which I would highly recommend if you haven't given it a go, and this one getting a better turret and then also still access to fire and forget missiles, people will really enjoy it. The other vehicles just being the AAs, you know, the HQ11 and also the Choose Sam, and then also we know there's a Swedish AA coming in too, so hopefully that's pretty fun. And then of course the controversial one, the M1A2T. I'm amazed that they're kind of still going ahead with this, just because of the fact it's just going to cause a storm, and it's a storm that's not really needed. After all of the VT4 stuff that went on over the last months or so, and the kind of visceral aggression that it created in terms of the game, and also in terms of everything going on, it's very, very odd to see them do the opposite, and actually kind of end up putting the Abrams into the Chinese tech tree. The only reason I can think they can do this is either the VT4 was never going to go into the Japanese tech tree, which is a possibility, or the other part of it, where they feel like the community reaction isn't as negative coming from the American player base when doing something like this. And I think that's more likely in terms of the two parts of it. And that is a fundamental issue because it means that they are treating different communities differently. Not everybody is being put onto the same level, and that is an issue. It also shows that if you scream loud enough and if you bang drums loud enough, you can get a reaction in your favor, which is also something that shouldn't happen when it comes to War Thunder either. So I'm hoping that this doesn't happen just for the sake of sanity, to be honest. Because, once again, we're just going to end up in a hellhole of community controversy. For me personally, when it comes to vehicles being added into the game, I don't really mind where they go. I feel like generally there's just going to be more and more vehicles that are going to turn up everywhere. I see this as the same as kind of like an M60 or an M48 kind of deal, which is already in the Chinese tech tree. But I get why there is a lot of Americans annoyed about this, because of the fact that it would be their best vehicle and it would be their kind of mainstay of the American tech tree. And it is obviously going to a nation which is not exactly favorable in the American conscience right now. But at the end of the day, stuff like this is just going to continue to happen. And as we go forward in War Thunder, with more nations being added, more vehicles being added, more ideologies being added as well, you're going to get more and more nationalism and more kind of defensive natures from many of the different players. And it's not really too surprising, as I said. For aircraft, there is a bunch of cool stuff. The Fireball is really nice. The fact that it's supposed to be a premium is awful. Once again, I'm kind of sick of all of the cool vehicles that are coming to the mid-tiers being premiums nowadays. They're not needed. There's already a million premiums at those BRs, and they're all really good. So the FR1 Fireball being a GE premium, I mean, it won't see any play. And it will be removed, and then they'll bring it back for like a FOMO premium every once in a while, and then it will just disappear. I just don't get why they keep doing this with these vehicles. It would be much better just to stick them in the tech tree and try and make money in other areas. Also, the Eurofighters coming in with an AESA radar. I saw there was a lot of people who were complaining about the fact that they're going to add in new fighters, which the only difference is the radar. And all I could say is, like, this has been happening forever with so many different vehicles. Like, I mean, literally the F4s, you know, the MiG-23s, even, like, the MiG-29s, like, the F-15s, you know, it's just kind of how it is. Like, all of these different vehicles, they have minor differences between them. That's how they extend the grind. If they just kept adding in more and more good stuff to one vehicle, then there wouldn't really be any point in playing anything else. So this is the way that they increase it. So either they increase it through weaponry, or they increase it through engine power, or they increase it through secondaries like radar and RWR, and this one is that. So it doesn't surprise me at all that this is happening. As somebody who plays all game modes, you literally have the 2A5, 6, 7, and 2A5 PSO. All of these vehicles have slight variations. Or you could have the Challenger 2s, right? Challenger 2, Challenger 2 2F, the TES, the OES, and then also, of course, the 2E. All of these have slight differences between them, whether it's additional armor, whether it's additional mobility, or whether it's like the Black Prince with additional survivability through APS. These are all minor things, and that's exactly what's going to happen to planes. Because unfortunately, now, when it comes to Gaijin, unless you look at very specific nations, you've run into a black hole, right? There isn't actually a lot you can add to the top tier of many nations. They've gone very, very aggressively over the last few years because there's been a lot of people asking, hey, where is my new banger? Well, they've added a lot of them now. There's actually not a ton of nations in the game that can get anything what would be seen as unique. Only you'll have is variations of what was there before. And that kind of sucks, but also it's just a reality of real life, so not really too surprising. The J-10C coming in is kind of fun. The MiG-25, of course, being the winter event vehicle. I'll probably do a separate video talking about the MiG-25. It's one of those which I'm happy that they're adding in, but yeah, it's not really gonna... It's either gonna be overpowered or it's not gonna be good. So it's not gonna be good. Let's put it like that. Over the last year or so, they had many opportunities with some of these weird and wonky event vehicles to make them overpowered through their BRs, and they didn't take them. So that's kind of interesting. We also have the DBLK, which is once again a fun vehicle, but it's another goddamn G premium. So it's just another vehicle lost to the ether of why would I buy this because it's going to be awful for grinding. Oh, it's unique and interesting and cool. Well, it doesn't matter because it won't be able to grind through the tech tree. Like, they've really got to stop just doing this stuff. And then also for Naval, you got a lot of the big bangers. You know, you just got a continuation of what they've been doing since the second update of the year. the South Dakota, the Prince of Wales, the Stalingrad coming in. All of these things are large and aggressive and cool Second World War battleships or battle cruisers, at least by design. You also have, the Lutyens, which is just a continuance of what we've seen, the Le Corse, and also the Suffering cruiser for France, another continuation of what we've seen from France, where they're continuing to expand the tech tree. I think generally the naval stuff is fine. It's not going to change any of the metas or not going to do anything. They really went out of their way in the middle of the year to add all of the bangers, and now they're going to, whenever they add anything new, it's not going to be as good as those. So kind of sucks, right? Apart from for Britain, I suppose, because Britain didn't get their banger. So the problem you're going to have, though, is everything's going to be now compared to those, and people who grinded out those, who are the people who are interested in high-tier naval, are they going to be interested in grinding out worse vehicles and then playing those worse vehicles against the better vehicles? That's always the tough one, right? Like when you add in very, very good vehicles, what's the incentive for those people who enjoy just playing the good vehicles? What's their incentive to actually continue to play other stuff? And unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be there. So it's a bit weird. It's the same reason why there's kind of a black hole between like top tier and then the high tier stuff. So you don't see a lot of people playing 12.3 and 12.0 because instead they're playing 12.7. And that is because they don't want to play the worst vehicles. And those areas are usually filled up with premiums, or they're used up with people trying to dodge the CAS, which sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. Also with the Infantry closed beta test most likely coming, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. As we've talked about before, Gaijin has to continue to expand the game. I don't know how many times I have to say it, but War Thunder as a product, its general development has to be one of expansion. They have to keep adding new things. They have to keep adding new game modes. They have to keep adding new events. They have to keep expanding. And with the way that the game is being developed, with also efficiency increases with stuff like the AI stuff, like they did with like the UHQ things, and also other areas that they're using, it just makes sense that they're going to add in something like this, especially when you have a look at the cross-contamination between the different dev teams of the different games that Gaijin has under their banner. The Enlisted and the War Thunder guys have worked together many times on many different projects. I still remember back in the day where they were working on terrain deformation together. Same with the Active Matter guys. All of these things are just how it is, and this is how it goes. So don't be too surprised when they decide to bring in more and more stuff from other games, just like how they've used War Thunder stuff in other places too. Now, for me personally, I don't think Infantry is going to fit unless it's its own individual mode, which is away from vehicles, by the way. I don't think vehicles fit in the mode at all, especially from the modern point of view. But we'll have to see what happens, right? I think generally it's going to be a bit of a mess, and also with a few products coming out this year, such as Battlefield 6, just kind of doing that niche for people, I'd be kind of surprised if this also is something that people really enjoy. But then again, free-to-play and FPSs I don't think have ever really gone together very well. People will point to stuff like Heroes and Generals, but unfortunately Heroes and Generals had a real big problem with getting new players into the game, which is why eventually it died. So we'll see what goes on with War Thunder. Hopefully it all works. Hopefully everything is good. Hopefully we can see what happens. And as always, let me know what you think. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.